Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Unleashing Potentials podcast. Today's special guest is Tammy. Tammy, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm fantastic. My kids are at school. I'm on vacation for a few hours.
Oh, there you go.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me here.
Yes, you're welcome. And you're also a podcaster yourself. How is that
Yes,
going?
very well. I just started one, so it's only been about I've done about 16 interviews, but only about 7 episodes in. But I absolutely love it. I love the conversations, and I just like to talk to people. So, what
Mhm.
better way?
Yeah, me too. That's awesome. Can you tell our listeners where you're tuning in from?
I am in Merritt Island, Florida, so right by Cocoa Beach.
Oh, nice. You're by the beach. I haven't seen
Mhm.
a real beach in a while.
Oh, I'm about 8 minutes from the beach, so it's super cool.
Wow, that is cool. Yeah. So Tammy, why don't you start by telling us who you are and what you do?
Okay, well, my name is Tammy Vincent, and like I said, I'm down in here in Florida, and I work with adult children of alcoholics and dysfunctional families. So I do life coaching, I do one-on-one coaching, I also speak for high schools and colleges
Mhm.
just for children so that we can help empower these children. I'm now the adult child of two alcoholic parents, so I grew up in complete and utter chaos and did not realize the damage that was done until I was about 26 years old and really had to regroup my whole life and get it all figured out. Went on about a 30-year healing journey. So I'm kind of dating myself, but I'm in my 50s now, and it's finally time to share the message because I think that there's a lot more people than you would ever suspect that are out there that are just kind of floundering, with relationships and money and the whole thing, and they really don't know why. And
Mhm.
if you really get down to the root of it, 9 times out of 10, it's how they grew up. So
Oh,
that's what I do. I help those people.
wow. You're so right when it comes to that because it starts in the beginning. None of us come to this world and not have something that we needed to go through that didn't impact us, whether it's a negative or positive way. I myself grew up in a house where there was alcohol and smoking. My dad was an alcoholic, and I agree. Like I'm in my early 30s, and the healing is just beginning. I thought I was over. I thought it was done now that I'm not in the environment, but we carry it with us. What were some of the traumas and things you carried from your childhood?
A lot of it was with relationships. So I became a complete and total people pleaser just because I was always walking on eggshells. I mean, literally every moment of my life was just making sure I didn't say the wrong thing, do the wrong thing, look the wrong way. I mean, I grew up what one day I would be, hugged and oh, that was amazing, Tammy. And then the next day, the very same thing might get me beat up or locked in a closet or whatever. So I literally grew up my whole life just walking on eggshells. So I wanted everything around me to just be peaceful. I kind of grew up with that. I was the people pleaser and I was the peacemaker. So it followed me so much into work. I felt like when I was 27 years old, I felt like I was everybody's doormat. Just throw it out there, throw it out to the world, and Tammy will take care of it because everything's got to be good.
Mhm.
And that was one of the biggest things. The other thing was boundaries. I
Ooh.
never had them. I didn't understand them. There was no boundaries with my life, whether it was my emotional boundaries. I mean, people could say and do anything they wanted to me, and it didn't matter. There was no privacy in my house. I could be taking a shower and everybody would be in there just like doing their thing, and I'm like, wow, this is crazy. But it was all normal. So when I went out into the real world and realized this is not normal, like it's okay to stand up for yourself and it's okay to set boundaries, it's okay to have privacy, it's okay to have all those things. I had to figure out the root cause of why I didn't and really dig down and start doing that. So I had a very big lack of self-confidence, lack of self-esteem. At 26 years old, I mean, just to kind of what triggered my whole healing journey was that I was pregnant with my first child and had a complete and total mental breakdown because I didn't know what unconditional love was. So I had never felt it. So I was like, how in the heck am I going to love this baby. I don't even know what it means. So
Mhm.
that was like the jump start of my healing journey. But then it was like, as I started realizing, hey, if I don't even know what something as basic as love means, what else don't I know?
Mhm.
And that started me off.
Wow, it's like you're telling part of my story through your story, if that makes sense, because
Hmm.
those are and were still things I struggle with, and I had to work through and go through them. And boundaries is so significant in life to have. When we don't have enough of it, everything you mentioned happens. Yeah, for me too, it's been in relationships. I still don't know how to do relationships properly. I'm trying. It wasn't modeled to me. Even love too. I love love and I also hate love at the same time because I don't know. I just don't know. So I'm
Right.
grateful that we're doing this interview, that you're sharing your experience, that I can also see myself and feel what you've been through, like I've been through as well. And I know that's going to inspire so many people.
Well, I think, like you said, you're in your 30s and you're like, wow, yeah, I feel like you're talking to me. And I feel like so many people. That's why I started my podcast, because you don't know what you don't know. So until somebody says something and it hits a nerve and you're like, hey, wait a minute, that sounds like me, then you start being aware. And awareness is 100% of it. Absolutely. To be aware of what you're thinking and why you're thinking, because like you said, you grew up, and when you have an alcoholic in the family, even if it's only one,
Mhm.
typically that other person is they're having to, so if it's your father, then I don't, it's your mother that's having to battle her own demons dealing with that, so they become emotionally unavailable sometimes, or and it's no fault, no, like I always say that there's no shame in any of it. It just is.
Yeah.
So now we just have to accept the fact that we can't do anything about the past. We
Mhm.
can't predict the future, but we can change what's going on right now. So like every choice you make, every decision, it just needs to come from a more authentic, a more you space versus a 5-year-old you or a 7-year-old you that didn't get those things.
Yeah, yeah, because most of us blame ourselves, whether
Mhm.
it's sexual trauma or mental or physical, whatever it may be. We always go back to ourselves when really, especially as kids, how would we have known better?
Right.
How could we have helped ourselves when we didn't know? We were unaware. We thought dysfunction was normal.
Hmm.
And I think so many of us do normalize dysfunction. We have our own personal dysfunctions that we protect at all
Oh,
costs, that we don't want people to disturb, and we want to have it that way. Um, what was some of the most important lessons and struggles you learned from detaching yourself from how you were raised versus now?
Honestly, I think more of it was even not detaching myself. It was just getting in and putting it in a better perspective.
Mhm.
I did go back. I'm a chronic learner. I like to learn. So, before someone was going to hypnotize me, I was going to learn how to hypnotize someone else. And before somebody was going to, learn how to tap on me, I was going to learn how to tap on myself. So I did go back and I did get like my NLP certification. I spent hundreds of hours learning that because I wanted to learn. I was learning all these different modalities. And I think what I realized was that it's not about letting go of what happened. It's just about reframing it and coming to a better place. I had to look at my parents, and I really had to understand that they were fighting their own demons. So there wasn't shame involved. So I couldn't be angry. I had to let go of the anger.
Mhm.
I had to really just, learn to just get back to, I had to get myself to a better place in the here and now, and kind of, I don't want to say let it go, because you never let it go, but you do reframe it. So like I'll literally sit and talk to my 5-year-old self sometimes if I snap at someone, or I say something that I'm thinking like, okay, I will literally look at my own shoulder and go, okay, Tammy, that was the 5-year-old you. Okay, give yourself a little hug. It's going to be all right. You're safe now, and move on. So, um, I mean, literally, and I do it. I still do it to this day. When I do something, I'm just like, okay, not you today. Like, we're not dealing with you. So a lot of it was, like you said, when you're up until about 7 years old, you are not making any conscious decisions at all. It's everything that's just being fed to you over and over and over again. And I did hear things like at 4 and 5 years old, my mother telling me she hated me. She wished I was never born. If I hadn't been born, she would be this and she would be that, and she wouldn't drink because she wouldn't have to. And that all, even though, now I can rationalize and say she didn't mean that. She was obviously not, in her right mind. But back then, I just immediately took on the identity of unlovable, unwanted, unworthy, all of this stuff. So you have to go back and deal with that identity, and you have to find a way to kind of reprogram all of that subconscious stuff, because like affirmations are amazing and I love them and I suggest them to everybody. You have to say to yourself, I am worthy, I am good. But until you believe it, you can say it over and over again, but until you truly somewhere in your soul believe it, then when a situation arises, you're going to react from that subconscious sense of not being worthy or not feeling good. So like I said, affirmations are absolutely amazing, but I think it also helps to have a support group that is encouraging those affirmations and backing them up. It's like I tell people, you probably have, I know it's like when I talk to people, like you said, oh, this is me. I can probably say like 100 things right now and you go, oh yeah, that's me. Oh yeah. And one of them is just accepting compliments, right? When you accept a compliment, what's the first thing you probably do? You say, oh, it's no big deal. If they were to say to you, oh wow, you did an amazing job. When I talk to people, it used to be my initial reaction. I would be like, oh, it was no big deal, or oh, so and so helped me. But I could never validate myself and validate that I did something amazing or worthy or good, because I didn't feel that way. So wow, I just said a lot to not really say anything, right? Huh?
No, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. What are some ways that you've been working with your inner child?
I did inner child work for about 6 years, a while ago. So, and I continue to do it.
Yeah.
But I used to write myself a lot of letters. I used to visualize myself walking up to my front door that I lived in. And I would literally visualize myself opening the door, and that was that little version of me sitting there. And I would walk in and I would hold my hand. And I mean, it was all visualization, but I would, sit myself down next to myself and have a conversation. And when things got a little tense, I would just be like, I'm sorry, I'm sorry I wasn't there for you. And obviously I know I couldn't have been there for my little me, but just, you're safe now, you're loved now, you are worthy, you are amazing, you're meant to be the little child that you needed to be, that never were allowed to be. So I do a lot of visualization. Like I said, a lot of journaling. I've written myself letters and just put them away, dear little me. And I know like one of the tips is always writing with your opposite hand. So they say it kind of connects the brain, the right and the left brain. And so if you're right-handed, you write with your left hand when you write yourself a letter. When you're left-handed, you write with your right hand. But just a lot of that. And then a lot of just going back and sitting with the feelings. Because I know I'm like not a jealous person, but if I have those feelings, it's like, okay, where did that come from? And so it's literally going back to that little child and being like, okay, why would I feel this way? Well, it's, why would because I was abandoned. So when someone else is taking that attention away from me, yes, I can see how that would happen. But that's most of it is, and there's journaling and there's all kinds of exercises but really it's just keeping in touch with that little you and knowing that when things pop up, that it's always going to be a part of you. You cannot erase any of the damage completely. It was done. It was over. It happened. But you have to continually reinforce that younger self that you are safe now, that people do love you, that because I know I developed a lot of defense mechanisms and a lot of coping skills that just don't serve me as an adult.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
and you're not alone. I feel that for me, I set up barriers,
mhm.
and um, I'm still struggling to do meditation with my inner child. That's how angry she is. And part of me as an adult is still raging as well, because I'm like, that's not right. My innocent was mine to keep and not for others to take it without my consent. So I struggle with that. You were talking about abandonment. Oh boy, that's a big one,
Oh yeah.
because we can see the effect of it in relationships. And when someone is not there when we need them, we instantly feel that, oh no, I'm bad. I did something wrong and they don't like me. They're leaving. And really, it's just they don't know. I think people don't know what they don't know if we don't tell them what we know. I don't know if that makes sense at all.
Oh, right, right.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And like you said with the communication, if they don't know, you don't know, you're coming from a different place. You're coming from a place of fear of abandonment where they don't know that.
Mhm.
So, they might do something so little, like say, hey, I want to go out with my friends. I know we had plans tonight, but I want to go out with my friends. I want to watch football. And
Mhm.
it should really be no big deal. But all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, he doesn't love me anymore. He'd rather spend time with his friends. Like I must have done something wrong, which is clearly all BS and nonsense. But that's where your brain goes until you're 100%, like, oh, okay, go ahead, you go and make it about you. And
Yeah.
a lot of healing is self-care. It's about prioritizing yourself and, even like you said, setting those boundaries. They're not to hurt the other person, they're to help you.
Yeah.
you know a
Absolutely.
boundary is not, if you don't want that person coming over to your house when they're drinking because it's going to remind you of being in an unsafe place.
Mhm.
It's not because you're being like you're bad, you're drinking. It's just, no, my mental health and my mental well-being needs to have you out of here when you're drinking. It's so, and that's really, and that goes back to, until you feel worthy, you won't do it. You won't set those boundaries, or you'll set them and then you'll cave,
Mhm.
which is even worse because then all you're doing is telling the person, oh, I just have to try a little harder.
Yeah. Yeah.
Once you give in to that boundary once and you go, then they're like, oh, okay, I get it. Now I know how far I can push her before she caves.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. With what I've been through, I honestly don't have the time or patience to put up with zero crap. None. Maybe it's a good thing, because I feel like I'm a soldier. I had to be a victim at one point. I victimized myself and vice versa with what people did. Now I'm like, no. I see it, I smell it, I know when it's coming, and I'm like, nope. How about you? What is it like now for you?
um, I've been, you're very young. So I was basically starting my journey right about where you are right now. So at that 26, when 26 is when I started pouring myself into this whole self discovery and
Mhm.
figuring out why and everything. And I was very much in victim mentality. Like very much. I admit it. And it was a horrible way to start off with my children because I had my first child at 26,
Yeah.
and that's when I was like kind of starting this. And it was all about me and woe is me. And then I don't know when, I don't remember exactly when the turning point was, when I finally was just like, you know what, I can't, there's nothing I can do about all of this stuff, and the anger is literally eating me up. I
Mhm.
mean, I had bleeding ulcers. I was spitting up blood. I would gain 25 pounds and lose 40 and gain and lose. And like physically, it was eating me alive, literally. And I think I just focused. I don't remember. I want to say I was maybe like 32. So my son would have been like 5. That sounds about right. So I had a 5-year old and a 4-year old. And I'd just gotten divorced from my first husband because I was just like, this is crazy. Like, this is not a normal relationship. I don't know if it's my fault, his fault, whose fault it is. It's just, it's toxic and it's not healthy. And I want to be able to model for my children what should be somewhat normal. So we had just gotten divorced, but it's like all of a sudden things just turned to me, and I was like, you know what? It's I can't help my kids, and I can't feed them good things and good thoughts and good habits unless I have them. So it's like all of a sudden it just flipped on me, and I had a whole different mentality of it was like in 1 year it was like I released the anger. I did so much meditation, and back then honestly like that stuff wasn't even really like affirmations. Like you didn't really read about that. They didn't even have a self-help section in the bookstore. It was just the psychology section. But I mean, it was out there. I just didn't have easy access to it. There was no internet. But I just was like, I've got to somehow take back control of my life, because everything is being controlled by something else, something external.
Mhm.
And I was still looking for the external to make me happy. I mean, even my husband now, I've been remarried for 22 years, and he'll say something to me and I'm just like, and then I'll even think about it like, wow, that maybe that should have upset me a little bit, or should have let me think, like should have made me give more into it, more energy into it. But it's like I don't want negative energy. I just
Yeah,
don't.
yeah, yeah. Wow.
So,
Yeah.
but
I'll,
it took a long time, sweetie, believe me.
I'll
A long time. There was
yeah.
many nights of just anger. And I think that's when I finally was like, you know what? I didn't even know how to feel. The first time I went to a therapist and they said, well, how does that make you feel? I said, what do you mean feel? I've never been allowed to feel. If I was happy, it was shut up. What are you laughing about? There's nothing funny here. And if I was sad, it's like, shut up, or I'll give you something to cry about. Like I wasn't even allowed to have an emotion.
Wow.
So when something terrible happened to me, and it could be something as horrific as being sexually assaulted, I kind of just stood outside my body and watched it. I like completely dissociated and was like, yeah, not dealing with this.
Mhm.
So when I finally had a therapist say to me, how does that make you feel? And I said, I'm not sure what you're saying. Like, what do you mean feel? And she's
Mhm.
like, well, angry, mad, sad. And I was like, I don't feel. And it took me 2 years to be able to feel an emotion, process where I was feeling it, breathe through it, and release it. Like get pissed. Like I can remember going for walks with my kids in the stroller and just like, and in my head, not to them, but just letting it get mad and just crying for no reason, and stomping my feet and putting a pillow over my head and just and it felt good.
Wow. Wow.
I
What a
highly
beautiful
encourage it.
example. Yeah, it's a beautiful example of how raw trauma can eat us up. It can eat
Mhm.
us up alive, even though if we look like we're doing good, we're smiling, everything's happening that we want to happen. And wow, you're not alone in what you just expressed.
No,
Like me, I'm numb, like
mm,
essentially numb. I know I'm capable of loving and giving love, but I'm still not used to receiving it. I don't know what to do with it.
mm,
It's like having, obviously with groceries you get them and you sort them out, but how do I put a recipe and make everything taste good and do good with it? I just don't know sometimes what to do.
right. And
Yeah.
it's just trial and error and experience, and
Mhm.
letting the other person know that's kind of where you're coming from, and that's probably one of the hardest conversations you will ever have.
Yeah.
Um, me being married for how many years, and then all of a sudden I'm like, yeah, I didn't I mean, I married you and had 2 children and still really wasn't there.
Yeah.
Pretty much numb.
Wow.
And and never really even had that conversation with my first husband. Maybe I would have, who knows, maybe things would have been different.
Mhm.
But I was all about, I got to take care of me, and the rest of the world can back away for right now.
Yeah.
So maybe, I don't know, I don't know the answer exactly. I know some steps. You said you've been practicing meditating. I mean, that is huge.
Mhm.
The biggest thing is, I don't care if it's you're walking and your finger gets pricked on something and you're like, ow, and you get angry for just a second. Stop, breathe, and process. and let yourself feel, even if it's something so simple. If your sandwich is disgusting and you take a bite and you're like, oh, this is gross. I mean, feel the, like, just, you have to start allowing yourself to feel anything, because it's so joyous when you can feel true joy and
Yeah,
true happiness.
and then on the opposite end, there are people who are so angry and they explode. I think there are different types of angers. Mine would be silent killer, I call it. It's on the inside, you can't see it. I can't even feel it, let alone show you how it feels like. But there are people who just explode.
Yep.
And they're, I wouldn't say violent. They just have different ways of expressing their angers, which is fine to feel and to acknowledge it. What would you say to anyone who's been through the situations that you've been through and they're trying to heal from it?
The most important thing I can say is that I'm here telling you, the rest of the world is out there that would tell you, if you let them, is that you are absolutely perfectly amazing just the way you are right here, right now. So anybody else, don't worry about it. My favorite expression is, what other people think of me is none of my business. Because not everybody is going to be your best fan, but you need to be your best fan because you have it in you. Absolutely everything you need in your life, you have inside of you right now. You just have to find a way to access it.
Ooh, I love that. I love that so much. So when you do your speaking engagements, what does it look like and what do you talk about?
For children, I want to go, like, schools. I want to start going into, and I haven't done a lot. I want to start going into schools and high schools and colleges and teaching adversity and teaching compassion and love and self-compassion more than anything, because children are struggling right now. I mean, hard.
Yeah.
There's not just addiction in the household. They say, like, what, 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 lives in an addicted household. But there's also all kinds of different mental disorders. There's homelessness, there's poverty, there's job loss. I mean, there is, the dysfunction is off the charts. So I want to, I try to tell people that a knight in shining armor may never come and save you. You have to find your inner resilience and your inner self, and you have to find that strength and that amazing ability right inside of you, because it's not easy. Life is not easy, and it gets thrown at you. And if you're always looking for happiness outside, you're going to always be looking for happiness outside. So the biggest thing I can say is that you are absolutely amazing. Like, I want to go to schools and tell them, if you look around and you count 5 people, 4 of them are feeling exactly the way you are. But there's too much shame involved with any kind of mental health disorders or addiction, or, my mom is this, my dad's this, my blah, 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 all that crap that they're fed, and they're trying to put on this facade, and you don't have to, because everybody is struggling. Yeah. So, I just want, nobody's alone. Nobody's alone in this. So if they all knew that nobody was alone, people would feel more free to express their feelings and talk about them. And be that friend. It's like, I always say, hurt people don't, or not, healthy people don't hurt people. People that are hurting hurt people. So if somebody is lashing out and they're being mean, it's because they're hurting themselves. So if everybody understood that, then maybe you'd want to, when people say something nasty to me, I freaking kill them with kindness, man. Because maybe they just need someone to vent. Maybe they just need a smile. You never know. I mean, you tell someone in the grocery store, that 65-year-old lady that's cashiering at Walmart, you tell her to have a blessed day, and watch her freaking mouth go, wee, and, because there's just not enough of it in the world. People are just angry, and there needs to be compassion. And if everybody kind of looked at the world like that, with more compassion and more empathy, and the fact that if someone is being a bully, it's because they're insecure and they're unhappy. So that's really, so I just want to spread the word. I do have 2 books. One is for teachers, and then one is called Surviving Alcoholic Parents, which is an ABC guide for teens.
Mhm.
And really, it is relevant to not just alcoholics. It's my story was the alcoholism and the drug addiction, but
Mhm.
it really resonates with anybody who is going through a dysfunctional world right now. Talks about detachment and empathy and enabling and living a Zen lifestyle. It's an A to Z guide. That's no kidding. It's like every chapter is a letter. But I figured that was easy for teens. But it's relevant to anybody out there that just wants to get a little more perspective. And especially younger kids, they don't know what they don't know.
Mm.
So they think it's normal, and it actually is the norm, but it's not healthy. So that's the best way to put it.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Yeah. And oh, all of us are going through something.
Mhm.
And the thing that gets to me, that's why I want to hear people share their stories, is that we suffer in silence. That's the part that gets to me because everybody has their own stuff they go through. And some of us are programmed to keep our mouth closed and to not process the pain we're feeling or the anger. And I think you're doing amazing work as well with your podcast to give people that platform to say, I can hold your hand through your pain while you share, and it's okay.
Right.
Just saying it's okay can literally have people cry because they don't know that it's okay. It doesn't feel normal for them to understand that they can let go, that it's okay.
Right.
Mhm.
Oh, completely.
Yeah,
Completely agree.
yeah. What would you say to parents? Let's say, they used to drink and they've recovered and they're doing good, their families are back together and they still feel like crap. Like they're never gonna be good enough as a parent. What would you say to them?
As far as parents, how to deal with the children, or as far as parents for themselves?
With
If it's
themselves. Yeah, let's say
okay,
they got clean.
if it's for themselves, I would say you need to go talk to someone. You need to talk to a support group. You need to talk to a coach or a therapist or somebody that has been there,
Mhm.
somebody that understands. But most importantly, you have to understand that addictions happen for a reason. They don't just they're not a choice. Yes, that first bottle of beer, if you know your parents are addicts or whatever, that first bottle is a choice, but it is seriously a disease. And I just like to say, there's no shame in it. I joke all the time and I'm like, you've never heard anybody call it Cancer Anonymous or Diabetes Anonymous.
Yeah.
So why is it Alcohol Anonymous? Alcoholism is a disease. Addiction is a physical disease.
Mhm.
So, I mean, don't give yourself some grace. I mean, that's the best thing is you can't function, you can't worry. I mean, you're going to think about the past. You can't worry about all of that. You just need to one step forward, keep moving forward, but give yourself some grace because it's not like you chose to be there. And kudos to anybody that is, in recovery, that is no longer actively drinking or actively using drugs. But
Mhm.
at the same time, all of the underlying beliefs that got you to using are still there until you deal with them.
Ooh.
So I mean, I know sometimes it's a hard pill to swallow, but even in the family, just because you stop drinking, the family life does not go back to normal. Not even close. It's just a whole nother set of issues because now instead of numbing all the issues that you just spent how much time numbing, now all these issues are at the forefront and have to be dealt with. And it's one of my favorite expressions when they just say, you can't heal until you deal.
Ooh. Ooh, that one
Yeah.
packs a punch.
Yeah, so I mean, and it's true, and it's the same thing with people that don't feel their emotions. You can't heal until you feel
Mhm.
because you have to process that.
Mhm.
So if you've stopped drinking and that's amazing, I still would suggest staying with a group, whether it's AA or whatever it is, or a coach or somebody that has gone through it
Mhm.
because it's a lifelong process. And I've been doing this for 30 years and I still am constantly on podcasts listening and doing meditations and listening. I was just listening to one this morning on cutting the cord,
Mm.
with the you're cutting cords with negative energy from people that have done you wrong. And so I'm still always trying to learn something because it's a lifelong journey.
Yeah, yeah. I think we're similar, like a sponge. You just absorb everything and all the information, and use the tools within that information. That's really awesome.
And I think that's the most you just said, that you just hit on a very key point, is use the tools. Because reading about inner child work doesn't do anything. Reading about shadow work doesn't help. Reading about journaling doesn't help unless you actually pick up the pen, talk to the child, or whatever it is. So you have to implement the tools. And there's millions of people out there that have so many tools in their little toolbox.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Let's see how to word this question. What would you have wanted law enforcement to do when you were going through what you were going through?
I don't know. I mean, I would have wanted them to arrest some perpetrators, that's for sure. I mean, we did have law people coming to our house quite often because of disturbances and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, I look at it and I go, would I wanted them to take me away from my parents? I don't know. I don't know.
Mhm.
Because then again, that opens a whole, there's no guarantee everywhere.
Mhm.
So I maybe, I wish, honestly, if I could go back and think what I wish had happened, I wish a teacher had said to me, had piqued questions, so that maybe I could at least have someone to talk to. Because I think about it now and I'm like, I used to go to school and I used to sleep on my desk all the time. And I was the lazy kid that didn't want to learn and everything else, but nobody ever said, why do you sleep on your desk? Because at some point in those 15 years, I probably would have said, because it's the only place I can sleep with both eyes closed.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
so I think it's very important for there to be more advocates, for the schools to really open it up. I mean, that's, they don't want people to talk about these issues. They're all taboo. But at the same time, this is why we have suicide rates. This is why 10-year-olds are killing themselves and 13-year-olds are cutting their stomachs. And because there's so much pent up silent pain that nobody's dealing with.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So there needs to be, like, there's organizations, there's Child Help, and there's NACOA that goes around, National Association for Children of Addicts.
Mhm.
There's all these organizations, but there's not enough people in there on the ground running all the time. Like, I wish I could have a million little advocates running around, just being like, oh, how are you today? Give me an honest answer. And letting people know it's okay to give the honest answer. So
Yeah. Yeah. Because most people, when you ask how they are, they say, I'm good.
mhm.
To me, that answer is running dry because that's not enough. I'm
Yep.
good. Everything's good. I'm okay. Like, are you though? Your
I mean,
body language doesn't say so. The
mm-mm.
sadness in your pupil and eyes, it's not matching with what your mouth is saying. Like, I'm good. I'm okay. Right.
Yep.
And it's just for people to learn to use their voices to speak up and to speak their truth, because in society we're molded to, it's like robots, follow the crowd, as long as you follow the crowd, you're good. As long as you're speaking and saying what we want you to say, you're in the clique. With me, I've always been the black sheep outsider. I love it. Actually, I absolutely love it. I'm like, thank you. You helped me find my purpose and voice. I appreciate you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right, right. It's just to do that. Yeah, I was taken out of my parents' home as well. Not where I grew up, my adoptive parents in Canada, because of abuse as well by social services.
Mm.
Um, if there were supposed to be police or whatever there when I was a child, which there weren't, they don't really care. Where I grew up, not here, is that they need to start believing kids when
Mm-hmm.
kids are saying, this is happening to me. It makes me so angry when most adults don't listen to kids, and yet they want them to process and speak up, but they're not listening.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If a child is saying, I'm being touched at home, I got hit, or whatever it may be, why not investigate more instead of thinking that you're getting into their own personal private lives or business? Right? It goes with what you said. You wish the teacher had said something.
Right.
And I hope teachers, if you're watching this, you can, say something and know
Yeah.
that it's okay to say something.
Absolutely. And also, one of my books is actually it's just basically reaching at-risk students in the classroom. And it just talks about how you can empower these kids and build a sense of trust and build camaraderie and all of that stuff without singling them out. You don't have to be like good, bad, good, good, because if you build that trust, they're going to make their own cliques. They're going to form bonds. They're going to trust you, and then you're just going to say one thing, it's going to come, and they're going to be like, oh, by the way, can I talk to you? And they're going to come to you. But if you just, I mean, I truly inherently believe that children want to learn. I mean, our brains are wired to learn. Our brains are not wired to do what you're doing
Mhm.
if you're struggling. But when you're in a hyper vigilant, walking on eggshells, not knowing where your next meal is going to come from, or I remember sitting on the bus and being like scared to death to go home because I didn't know what kind of mood my mom was going to be in.
Wow.
And so my whole day in school was consumed with, oh my God, what's going to be like when I walk in my house? Well, you can't learn. Nobody gives a rat's butt about science or arithmetic or, you just want to survive.
Yeah.
So, but if you do activities and you build this trust and team building with kids and get them to journal, get them to pour it out on paper. I
Yeah.
used to have a little mailbox for kids that could put anonymous letters in it. And then we used to answer the letters in classroom. We called it our magic mailbox. And I would feed all the questions into there because I knew what the kids needed to hear. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? So it was like, but they have to find a way. There's got to be a way.
Yeah. Yeah. And to not judge them. Don't judge. I mean, for people to not judge anybody, whatever
Mm-hmm.
age they are, because I think at times the way we treat people and judge people is a reflection of how we were treated and how
Sure.
we're feeling. And sometimes it's coming from a place of love or pain. It depends on how we let it out, right? Um, you said you've listened to quite a bit of podcast. Can you tell me three or two or one podcast that you've been listening to, other than mine?
One of them I listened to is The Adult Child,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
and it's just called Adult Child. I'm trying to think of I flipped through them so much, and I'm trying to think of the actual names of them. You know what? Maybe I'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to think.
There's so many, and there's
Yeah, there's this one I'm looking, the Crappy Childhood Fairy. That's a funny one. It's called, yeah, literally The Crappy Childhood
wow.
Fairy.
Yeah.
There's another one called The Genius Life that I listen to.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many, and if you just type in, like, I usually type in like childhood trauma or something like that. But there's so many. They're people are starting. I think it's good. We're in an age of kind of self-awareness, and we're in an age where people are feeling like they can start. There's all these like movie actors and all these big television stars and all these people that are coming out and saying, yes, I was abused and I was neglected, and this is what happened, and this is why I drink now. And I think that's good. I think it's really good because it makes people think that, okay, I'm not so alone. Because
Mhm.
up until just recently, nobody would ever have done that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
You're
I
right.
mean,
Yeah.
I love these podcasts as venues to do that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. My podcast, I would say it has a delicious blend of topics, and that's why I welcome every single story. I don't really fit in a niche, and I love that too. Yeah.
oh no,
Um,
I love it. I'm gonna definitely save yours for sure.
yeah, I interviewed a lovely gentleman from the UK last week, and he was an alcoholic and he used to use, and now he's empowering men and women from all over the world. Yeah, yeah, there's so much power and fun in podcasting. I love it. It's
Oh
like
yeah.
a playground. I'm all giddy and I'm young again.
Yeah, it's a passion project of mine, but I'm definitely having a good time with it.
Yeah, yeah. Then that's the thing, right? To not take it too seriously, to have fun with it. Yeah, I think we need to have more fun with stuff in life and to not take it so seriously.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So is there anything else you'd like to cover that we didn't talk about yet?
No, I think we kind kind of got a lot of everything. I mean, we kind of did the whole broad spectrum,
Yeah, that's
and just,
awesome.
I mean, we really did. We went from the teachers to the kids to the adults to the whatever it was. So, I mean, I think we've covered a whole lot of stuff. And like I said, I just like to leave people with the message that it's never too late and it's never too early to start on that journey,
Mhm.
because it's so worth it. So
Yeah.
worth it.
Yeah.
You're worth it.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. So are you. So are you.
Yeah.
You're such a vibrant, beautiful soul. And I know deep in my core that your podcast is gonna touch lives, and especially what you've been through and the topics you're talking about, it's gonna help quite a bit. What's the name of your podcast again so I can check it out?
Adult child of dysfunction.
Okay. Okay, I'll check it out after this. Okay.
And
Um,
then there's subtitles, just thriving after chaos. So the stories are anybody that's had just tumultuous
yeah.
upbringings and then kind of gotten on through to the other side. I mean, I'm having one lady on there next week who literally had to interview her mother's 14 different personalities to get her committed. So you can imagine what she grew up with as a child.
Ooh. Oh my
Yeah, so it's
God.
crazy,
Wow.
right?
Wow. Fascinating. Wow.
Hmm.
Wow. 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 What is the meaning of life for you, Tammy?
The meaning of life. Wow.
Mm,
I think the meaning of life is just that we're all here just to be, and to be joyous and to be the way we were. And that we make it too difficult. I think it's just to be joyous and just to be.
yeah. Yeah. Where can my listeners find you and support your work and maybe listen to your podcast?
The best place actually to go is just to my website, which is just my name, tammyvincent.com. And they can get pretty much everything there. Reach out to me. I love to have little coffee chats. So I've got a link on there to just chat. I mean,
Mm.
that is great to me. And then if you wanted to delve more into the podcast, I mean, I'll steer you in every which direction. I have a Facebook group, and we can put that in the links if you don't mind. That would be good.
Absolutely.
But most of the things, it's just easiest just to go right through tammyvincent.com, because then you can get links to my webinars and different things.
Mm-hmm. She makes it easy, you guys. Yeah, there's people who have so many different names, and this one's easy, go straight to it. Yeah, that's
Hmm.
awesome. Yeah. Well, Tammy, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for all you're doing and continue to do. And most importantly, thank you for sharing your story and spreading your wings and flying and helping others fly as well.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.